Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be trying something incredibly different. Also, it may be too bright. Give me a minute. Damn. I really hope it's not really dark now. I feel like it might be really dark. There's no winning. It's either going to be really dark or really bright. I guess it's always better to be a little bright. Especially me and my dark features and all that. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a brand new series, which is something that I've always wanted to do, kind of like a podcasty thing, which you guys can definitely tell with the whole like channel updates. So basically just me just shooting the shit and hanging out with you guys for a bit. But in this instance, I also think of podcast being like this like conversation between a couple people. This is not going to be quite that. This is going to basically be a series where, well, let me explain things a little bit further back. One of the things that I've always had is a problem with boredom. And every single time I get bored, I do my best to try to get not bored. And how I've done that, well, there's multiple reasons why. But essentially, I make worlds in my mind. Stories I try to morph in my mind. I try to come up with characters, and also with the medium that I find myself in right now, where I love to pieces video games. I really enjoy anime as well, and I enjoy TV shows that deal with just unusual things, like supernatural things, whatever, just cool takes on things, like a hive mind for interesting ideas. Is what I constantly find. The media that I'm drawn to is that, something with interesting ideas, characters that are odd, different, and etc. So, again, over the course of my entire life, I've always retreated into this like kind of background headspace of, well, what if I was making this story, and what if this story had this? And over the years, I've come up with a bunch of things, but one of the things is like coming up with the rules for the world, to come up with character types and ideas, and have to focus on basically have a list of things that you need to kind of stay within a parameter, just so that you're not dealing with this just insanity, So that is the idea for this podcast / just video. Hopefully you listen to me babble for a little bit. Essentially, I want to give you guys a world to play with. I want to give you guys a playground of a basis for a thing, a cataclysm, an event, a something. And for you guys, when you're doing your job, or when you guys are sitting there playing games, or when you guys are watching a TV show you really like, and you find something like, oh, that's pretty unique and different. Maybe you can implement it in that world, or just build off of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to give you guys the world that I'm making currently in my head. There's many, but the one I'm currently making is kind of inspired by Halloween-like stuff, which this video is going to be getting to you fairly after the fact. So hopefully you'll be patient with me and forgive me for that. But yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. It's a world that I think is really fun to play with. And how I want to go about it is, and this is why it kind of takes the path of a podcast, is because I want to tell you guys how I got to the choices that I chose to build the structures of the world. But yeah, that's the premise. Essentially, I want to give you guys a world to build off of. And again, at any point, you guys can say, I don't like that choice, Corinne. I would have rather done this. And I would love to hear what you guys change. Because that's just how this works, and I'll get into why, or how I come up with anything, is just by seeing something I like and seeing how I can do my take on it, and seeing what rule I can make to make the world seem balanced and not just insane. But also, if I want to make a story that's, has insane elements, and I could still do that, like an overlord or a One Punch Man, where it's like this godlike creature in the center, at center stage, but the worlds are reacting to him. But yes, that is the idea of the series. Again, I find great value in this because when I'm bored, or when I'm doing my job, or whenever I'm just trying to get through something, my brain always jumps to this as a kind of a way to get into a flow state so that I can get through that faster. And I don't know, I think for people who have a crazy imagination and want to do this all the time like myself, maybe I can stoke the fires of a little bit of creation. And yeah, again, also, I am being quite gritty because I would love to hear what you guys do in terms of choices you would have made, a rule that you would have implied despite my rule, or whatever. Because maybe that rule's better, and maybe I get inspired by that, and it changes the whole thing. Who knows? Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin about how the hell I came up with this. Well, again, all the things that I came up with. Oh, there's a spider crawling on my wall. Oh, give me a minute. Not happening, motherfucker. Fucking yuck, dude. Yuck. You're gonna crawl on my legs when I'm at my desk. Anyways, so, again, like I was saying, none of the ideas, I'm not a believer of that. And you guys will see when I explain why I came up with the ideas that I did. I'm not a believer of gatekeeping a concept. So again, there could be thousands of people that say, you ripped off this story or this story. Rah, rah. I'm usually pretty honest about telling you what I thought was really cool and how I wanted to build off of that. So yeah, or anyone who has a problem with it can say they have a problem with it about me taking from a certain thing or saying outright I copied this or that. That's not what this is for. This is just to stoke the fires of imagination and creativity and boredom, basically. A device to destroy boredom, just a touch, when there's literally nothing to do and you're only given your imagination. So, let us begin. Also, mug of the sitting, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, alright, so right around Halloween, is like my favorite time of year. It's the place where weird monsters and so many cool things can be shown to us. And I've always loved that in media, like crazy amounts. But specifically, I like monster movies that paint monsters as not just one-dimensional evil things that are just like, hey, it's a vampire. He's always gonna be a bad guy. He's always gonna like date rape some sort of woman with his weird telekinetic powers, and he's just a bad guy. Same thing as I hate the prospect of like a werewolf who is always just going to be a glorified berserker. You know, I don't like that, although I do like the berserker part. But to say that you couldn't control it is just like weak, you know? So I really like stuff that give more depth to that. Like, yes, it's challenging to control some sort of form or whatever, at least in the rule set that we have over the years given to werewolves and vampires, but I like it when they go beyond that, right? I like everything like that. I like when you show something that is otherwise perceived as dark and gloomy as potentially light and cheerful, or at least another side to potentially something that could be quite one-sidedly evil. Yeah. Hence why I really like shows like Overlord, and again, any show that paints monsters in a somewhat fun and not completely evil light. Anyway, so I love Halloween to pieces, and this is the hive mind of the year for just this craziness. You know, seeing people's costumes, seeing what people do, and seeing the cool, gross, creepy things that people play. And essentially, it's kind of feeds into that very much, Halloween. Because you'll have this person who dresses up as this crazy ghoul who's like bleeding from the face and dripping blood out of his mouth, but then you're like, hey John, and he's like, what's up, dude? And it's just like a complete disconnect from what it actually is, because you know the person. So that's just the basis of Halloween, and I really enjoy that part of it. So another thing tied to Halloween is that I absolutely love, and maybe it's because I grew up on these movies, but I really, really love the movie series Halloween Town. It's something that my family has always come together and watched every year when I was a kid, and it was just something. It was awesome every Halloween to have this weirdo, interesting world that was delivered to us. And that sparked the first idea for this kind of premise. And I thought this way back when I was a kid, when I was just like, okay, in the movie Halloween Town 2, there's this big bad villain who essentially is trying to merge the monster world with our world. And he's basically trying to get back at human beings for making fun of monsters when they're kind people and all these things. So he finds this old book. I mean, basically it makes anyone who's wearing a mask turn into a monster, to become the thing that they're making fun of, so to speak. Which we'll get into that, but anyways. So as a kid, I was like, that's a really cool idea. Like, it's messed up if you get like a really shitty set of cards. Like if you're a woman who's like, I'm gonna dress up as a zombie this year because who cares? But then this event happens where you become that thing you're dressed up as. You would have some people who get super screwed over by being this kind of grotesque thing, but then you'd have other people that luck out big time, like a person who plays a vampire, or dresses up as a vampire, dresses up as, I don't know, a hobgoblin that has like the prefix of like gold alchemist or something, because he's decked out in gold, and then you literally can make gold out of nothing, like, you know, something like that. So to me, that's where this whole thing spawned by. But I don't like the idea of there being like this humanoid figure who basically just flips a couple pages and then turns everyone into monsters. So that is the first kind of playground that we're playing with. We're playing in a world that on Halloween night, bang, gets turned up on its head, and everyone who was participating in dressing up in any kind of monster kind of costume, I'll talk about why I kind of gave it that prefix, boom bam, gets turned into that monster permanently. So to me, first of all, interesting premise, I think, but there's a lot of kind of rule making that needs to happen with this. Otherwise, things are going to go awry really fast. Like, this is supposed to be a world that we can tell stories in, right? Well, this goes to shit really fast when if someone dresses up as Jason Voorhees or or Freddy, then congratulations, baby, you have a horror only world to where you are basically being wrecked in your dreams and in the outer world. So we have to come up with some ground rules to kind of settle the world. Okay, well, first of all, I don't like the we'll get to why this happened in like a coming explanation. But rule time. A quick patch for this issue of constantly being in a horror show is to essentially add the rule of whoever is dressed up as anything, I don't know, a ghoul, a Frankenstein, anything, any kind of monster that you can think of, a zombie, I don't know, a witch with boils, anything like that. You gain the physical and spiritual, whatever you want to call, aspects of it, but no mental. So if you did dress up as Jason Voorhees, hockey mask, machete, kills teens, all these things, you would gain the physical body of Jason, this giant fucking ogre of a man. Also, you would get insane resilience. And because I love video games, you guys will see that a lot of this is based around kind of gamey things, but also I feel like that's just another thing that I like, and that's why we're doing it that way. Anyways, the negatives, though, is that you do have, like, this hockey mask. It could be different. We could get cool with it and be like, hey, it doesn't have to be the identical mask that you're wearing. Maybe everyone who dressed up as Jason gets a different mask, but it is permanently infused to your face. But another positive, you don't need to eat. He just stays jacked and just kind of, yeah, forever. So, yeah. Anyways, but you don't get the bloodlust or whatever, or the nightmare history of that character. You're just you, and you just find yourself in this crazy buffed state. But if you happen to, and this kind of plays to the, how do I say it, is if you dressed up as a monster that was really trying to make fun of the grotesque and rudeness of that monster, so to speak. Like, so say as a person, you're like, oh, I'm gonna be a really ugly witch with boils and shit on my face, and yuck, or I want to be an orc and look all gross and have scars and shit all over my face, then motherfucker, that's the bed you've made for yourself. And this, to me, lays a cool a kind of like, to me, what I want to be the figurehead for who made this come into fruition. So who the hell and why the hell did this happen? Why the hell did on Halloween night, bang, everyone got turned into what they were wearing? Well, we'll get into it. More rules, but we'll talk about it. Anyways, to me, I came up with the idea of, again, maybe this is someone else came up with the idea, but I'll be saying that a lot. Just fair warning, I don't mean I'm the only one who has this idea, because that's impossible. But anyways, I came up with this idea that I really like the idea of there being this deity, this god, that seed over all the realms. Say there's multiple different kind of worlds or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, he was the champion of the monster realm. He was beloved by them, and he loved monsters. He's seen the good in them, but also the fury and the power and the ability for a complicated race of people to find their way. And he's seen great worth in that, so he very much enjoyed their worship of him, because he worshipped them as well, liked them as well. But in the side mirror, he noticed that there were these other people, human beings, who were constantly making fun of the things that he saw so much pride in and so much gratefulness in. So one day he finally is done. He's pissed. He's fully okay with this anymore, and he's been seeing this from a distance. So finally, with his godlike power, he saunters over to our world, and he says, okay, you want to keep making fun of these monsters, then I will turn all of you into the thing you become. But with the catalyst of this, he's coming at it from the perspective of, he really likes monsters and he sees the good in them, and he sees again, with human beings, we're all kind of the same here, and we all, look, you can just look at other human beings and find your way. Whereas monsters, it's very different. It's like 1,000 different types of people trying to live in an ecosystem. So he really likes that for that reason. But he's coming at us with that negative of being like, hey, those of you who hate, who make fun of, who poke fun of at these things that you would define as monsters, but are really just people that were born with a specific unfortunate set of circumstances. I'm going to make you become them. But he's coming at it from the perspective of loving monsters. So he takes kind of credence with certain things. So for instance, if you dressed up as just like a nice happy witch, so say if there's like a little girl going trick-or-treating and she just dressed up as like a cute witch, nothing crazy, he's not going to punish that person that much. In fact, he'll do the opposite, because you're not like crushing a monster, you're glorifying it to a certain degree. You're glorifying something that so many around you would vilify, you know. So for that, he doesn't take any issue with, and he says, okay, great, yeah, you can literally just get the benefits of what this is. But for people that make fun of it, he's cruel. And he's like, you're going to have this. But that also, to me, lays a very interesting groundwork for where I want my story that I want to tell in the world to go. And we'll get into that in a little while. But, so there's this deity, and he goes ahead and he does this. And that's the kind of the world we play with, but also this gives me the opportunity to have another rule. Now, by the way, how I come up with any of this is very not the way I'm explaining it to you. I very much was like, hey, this is a cool idea. We're always in kind of a Halloween land, like everyone's becoming monsters. Oh, shit's gonna get crazy, all this cool stuff. But anyways, along me like coming up with ideas for this specific character that I've made, and reasons why I want him to follow certain things, all those things, along the way I come up with this. It's not just like I've come up with the world. It's usually like my main character's existing in the world, and then I kind of craft stuff around it. Anyways, but I think it'd be better to go about it like this. So, there's another issue with this. What happens when people dress up as superheroes? Motherfuckers dress up as Superman or Iron Man or some shit, and now they're like gonna dunk on some monsters, even though there's some power scaling that we're gonna do. Anyways, no. Deity says bullshit. That's not something that he fucks with. Okay? It's kind of a quick patch, but it's true, and I could see a person doing that, whereas his issue is with people being monsters and or making fun of monsters. So his counter to this is, of course, to be like, hey, the people that are making fun of monsters are going to go this way. He doesn't know anything about superheroes, so he just thinks it's a bunch of nonsense, so he just doesn't do anything. You don't turn into anything if you're dressed up like that. But there is one more rule, because I thought it'd be really cool for there to be one more thing to play with in this world. I really like the idea of hybrids. So like what do you call it, in Underworld. I love monster movies, so of course I'm gonna bring up Underworld. But anyways, Underworld, in the first movie, they came up with a hybridization of a vampire and werewolf, and it was so fucking badass. I was a little kid watching that shit. I was like, this is dope. This is so cool. He's super fast and he's all black and tar-like, and he's got like crazy claws. Anyways, I was into it. I really like the idea of hybrids. So to me, I did another step in this direction of saying, okay, well, long ago, before, when human beings were just coming into kind of existence, / maybe we want to go even further and say along the time of like kings and knights and all these things. Let's say that. Along the times of kings and knights, monsters were actually coming into existence to a certain degree. Werewolves, vampires, that kind of thing. But over the course of like the Crusades and whatever kind of event you want to tie to it, they purged them. But that was not without them continuing their lineage to a certain degree, like sleeping with people and putting a slight bit of DNA into the world. So, to me, this makes me really happy, because there'd be a very, very select few, or for whatever reason this DNA stayed alive, and lo and behold, the main character, to me, I was greedy and was like, if my main character is going to exist in this world, I want him to have like a giant leg up. So of course he has one of these pieces of DNA, and yeah. So that's the background of it. So if you want to have like a hybrid, boom, bam. But I don't know if I want to, I don't know. This is just, again, any rule you could be like, let's tweak that rule in my favor if you want. But for me, I think I would limit it to, if you want to truly meld things into themselves, I feel like it would require a great deal of experience, and we'll get to where I'm taking the story for me personally. But at this point, you can do whatever the hell you want. you could be like, okay, so that's the world in. If you're a female, you could be like, okay, I'm gonna be a vampire and a ghoul, or that's kind of double dipping on similar things. You could be a vampire and a ghost. You could phase through walls and shit. You could like I don't know, ghost things, whatever. But yeah, you could literally go in 1,000 directions. But to me, I'm going to keep building the worlds. But at this point, I will be building the world with my character, the main character that I came up with. Which, by the way, just to get it out there, very much so, this is escapism for me to a certain extent. Again, boredom, monotony, the things you have to do in your life, like laundry. This is the perfect time to just like think about this shit while you're doing laundry or nothing. So very much for me, the main character is, well, it's weird, because the main character isn't exactly me, but it's how do I say it? It's someone who I think would be good in the story, but I'm also seeing it from my perspective, you know what I mean? So it's not me, but I'm seeing it from my perspective, but I'm also doing things that I wouldn't do, because fucking what, you know? But anyways, okay. So I think that's the foreground for the most part. That's the world that we're going to be playing with, but I'm going to go a little bit farther and try to make the worlds something that you can really open up and play with. And by the way, I didn't exactly pull from it, but I could see somewhere along the line me getting like just the idea of like deities and gods from No Game No Life and stuff like that. Like that's the kind of thing. But that's not where. Like a lot of the time I'll see something and be inspired by it and I'll try to build off of it. Or like rip it down to its skeleton and then build off of it. But for this instance, if it doesn't come to mind, then that's not the case. But that's not to say that I haven't like watched a TV show that has touched one of those things. Like No Game No Life reminds me of like this deity god pulling you into another world, but that's not the case. It's the inverse of a deity god being like, ah, fuck you, and everything's all fucked now. But also, one of the things you could do is you could be like, you know what? Even though this crazy event happened, let's just say that everyone kind of figured it out. Like in a year's time, everyone kind of got settled. And maybe you want to do like a monster high school thing. I don't know, whatever you want. Not me, personally. No thanks. Although, interesting idea for another story, but not quite. I want to stay on track with my story. Because we got a lot more shit to build. We got a lot more rules to apply. And we're going to keep going. We're actually making hella good time. I was worried this was going to take a long time. Alright. So, the beginning of how this character starts is not too important besides a couple things. So, the main character that we're going to be talking about is a person, let's just say 18. I'm 23, so we're not inverting or not like trying to do that. Let's just say 18. Boom. So, the main character has two things that I feel like are important to a story beat that I have later on. So, one of the things is that our main character, obviously, loves Halloween, but specifically he's obsessed with monsters of any sort. Like he has this stupid bestiary and all these nonsense things. So he just really likes monsters, and he really loves Halloween, and he really likes, like me, kind of projecting attention this one, monsters persuade in a good light. So anytime he dresses up, he never dresses up in like kind of a gross manner. If anything, it's more trying to take a cool spin on something than a negative. Anyways, another thing, because, I'm so sorry for a full stop, but one of the things that, and this would be my advice to you guys, is to set some parameters within yourself. Like, again, try to do a scaling thing, or at least make it reasonable for how you're scaling something. So it's like the idea of, like, I have the issue sometimes when I'm making stories in my head, is I like the idea of, like, a main character that is very quietly strong as shit. I really like that idea. So people undermine him, but that also gives him an in with certain things, and he can manipulate the battlefield in that way. And I just like that. I just like that idea. But I also find myself being like, okay, well, if he's this strong right now, then it just messes things up. So there should be some sort of gradual power increase, which was a first for me, which is what I was really trying to do with this, which is why you guys will see where we go in a couple minutes. But the other thing that I was really inspired by, and this was one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to start building on this story, was I watched this show, TV series recently. It's on Amazon Prime's TV network kind of thing, their Netflix model, but it's called Mean Editing. I'm sorry to do that to you, but yeah, Mean Editing, boom, it's called
Good Omens. It's fantastic.
Cool. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking on the name of it. But anyways, this TV series, I would highly suggest it, has one of the best, like, representations for friendship, and that whole thing in any TV series in my entire life that I've ever seen. It has such a genuine, loving, fantastic kind of experience. When it comes to that, I would highly suggest it. To me, it's like the weird friendship kind of back and forth between them where they're like opposites, but these opposites accept what is essentially different about them, and then they become better friends because of it. And they kind of like take notes from both of each other. Like they grow by taking the morality and the understanding of both sides of the issue with each other. It's really, really cool, and one of the best it's the best friendship I've ever seen represented in any TV show. I would highly suggest it. It's driving me nuts, I can't think of the name. So to me, I really wanted to represent that in this story. I really wanted the main character to basically have this friend kind of pillar, this like super good friend where they don't know each other. Like that's also another thing. I wanted the friendship to start when Halloween, when I don't know what the hell you guys want to call the Halloween night, turning everyone into monsters. I'm sure you guys come up with a cool name like D-Day or some bullshit. I don't know. That sounds like a whole other thing. But anyways, so that's the other pillar that I want to try to jump at. I'm sure you guys could do the same. And it's interesting because that specific kind of pillar to kind of aim for is interesting because you'll find out what you value from like friends and friendship and things like that. So you'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't really. Okay, interesting, because you could really see like, oh, I really value loyalty, or no, I value someone who pulls me out of the shit when I need help, stuff like that. But anyways, that's the other pillar that I have to work with. So, to me, of course, the main character is very much a quiet. Maybe he was like shunned by people because of his love for this weird kind of medium of like monster movies and monsters and all these things. Yeah, he just really likes that kind of thing, but he also doesn't have that many friends, doesn't really get out much. In fact, the only time he really gets out is Halloween because he loves the weird party, nostalgia, and all these things. Now, the other thing that I don't know what I want to do is we need our main character to be, how do I say it, the ability to run wild. We need him to not be anchored to anything. So if he has a family, then that's hard, because maybe we want to come up with something like he has a family, but because of instances that we don't want to get into, they're not around at this moment, and maybe he's been on his own for a good little bit, and he's in like a kind of a town, not like a big town, not a small town, just a town, like a pretty decent sized town, let's say. This is the first time I've kind of ironed out these parts, but yeah, we need him to basically be able to move when this event happens. And if he's like, oh no, I don't want him to be like he's not a bad person in any stretch of the imagination, is also a character trait I have on him. So I can't have him be like, hey, well, this whole like terrible event went down. Oh, let me just leave my family, gone. And maybe we want to do that. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so his family is really not into Halloween. So they never dress up. Let's say they never fucking dress up. And they're always working quite a bit. Let's just say all these things, okay? And they're super good at taking care of themselves. Bang. But so much so that they wanted to give their son some independence and see how he handles the world by himself. So they, of course, put him into a house by himself, put him into like a tiny apartment, and just had him do things. Cool. Halloween comes around. This is one of the only times when he really gets out there. He suits up. He's ready to go experience Halloween, go to the parties. Of course, he dresses up as one of his favorite things in any sort of mythos, which is a necromancer / wraith. So yes, by the way, I think these two things are awesome, especially considering the way we're gonna take this is very much gamey, with stats and like builds and shit. So that's why we're going in that direction. Yes, so that's why we're going with like a necromancer. But so he has the whole skeleton arms kind of thing, like gloves that are all skeleton based, and it's like solid gloves, like something that's good material and all that stuff. And he does the whole 9 yards. He puts like orange contacts in his eyes and a bone mask.
Really quick, I meant green contacts because the whole necromancer thing. Cool.
But something else is. Yeah, the hybrid thing. We're gonna get into it. But anyways, I'm sorry, by the way, guys. I get really giddy with this stupid shit because I'm like, I'm controlling this dude's kind of weird broken power that I've made in my head. Anyways, yeah. But the reason why I went with Necromancer for soon to be his power, one of his powers, is because to me I really like that idea of reincarnated as a slime. That show ruined me and just gave such credence to how not overpowered, just how cool that would be, of having like all these things and having being able to buff people up and have them like work for you almost, is like a summoner basically. So to me, that's what the character is, and we'll get into like prefixes and how that works within the world when we're there. Let's say when we're there, at a certain point when he meets his friend, we'll get to there. Okay. Anyways, he's dressed up for Halloween. He's about to go. He's putting on his gloves. He's ready to do it. He's ready to be socially awkward in a fucking crowd, but still get out there because he loves the whole festives. Fuck yeah. Anyways, looks at himself in the mirror, makes his way to the door, and then boom. Whatever you guys want, a crack of lightning, a flash, everyone in the world just feels like their heart explodes in the span of a second, or everyone who's dressed up as a monster, boom. They feel like their heart just boom, boom, and then they drop to their knees or crumble because of whatever. Now, another thing that I didn't mention, and this is another balancing thing. God, I'm sorry, I'm a bit all over the place. But just wait, we'll get into there. We'll get to that. Anyways, so the main character drops to his knees and starts freaking out. Of course, he's starting to morph into this bone man. And as he's starting to see his hands become complete bone. Now, he doesn't have skeleton hands. It's basically like your hand, except if it was coated in this white paint. That's what I would rather have, because I want these giant punching hands. It's kind of where we're going at. And of course, the works. You guys can use your imagination, and I don't want to get all nerdy and gross, but I'm thinking of the works. Him looking at his hands are turning into bones. He's like, his eyes are starting to glow green. Did I say orange contacts? I meant green. Yeah, green contacts. Sorry, he put on green contacts. His eyes are starting to go green. The mask is starting to get like pushed deeper and deeper into his skin until finally it starts to almost meld with it. And of course, this is a brutal, painful experience. In this instance, sorry. In this instance, it starts to get a lot. And after he's feeling all these aches and pains and these cracks, and he's feeling more stiff, like he's becoming like weirdly jointed, he rolls over on his side in pain and looks up. And he has this window. It's pretty big. And in the window, he sees this beautiful white dot. And he's just trying to forget about the pain. So he's just focusing on this white dot that he can see finally part. And it gets more clear and clear as clouds start to part. And eventually he's like, oh, there's the moon, this beautiful, beautiful moon. And then in that instance, because his heartbeat has stopped this whole time, I should have mentioned that. Like for him, since he's an undead, everyone feels like this boom, like this them hitting a wall kind of feeling when this cataclysm happens. But because he's undead, because he's a necromancer or whatever, his heart full-blown stops, and that's why he's starting to feel all these things. But then, again, he's on his back, he's looking at the moon, and then finally it parts, and then boom, you hear his heart go boom, and wake back up. And yeah, I want this motherfucker to be half werewolf, half necromancer weirdness. Fuck yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry, guys. I get too into stories and shit like this in my head. But yeah, that's something that I just think is a cool combo, because you get the power and all that. But also, I hate werewolves get such a bad rap, and like, especially compared to vampires and shit. We're trying to set that course correct. We're trying to course correct that in the story. Anyways, regardless, of course, because it's like it's this fighting thing, and this is something I also wanted to apply to a rule in the world, and that's why I kind of went back and forth, because I want to tell you guys at this point. The reason why, or one of the things we're going to use to normalize people's obsessive, insane power, is two things: understanding of what they're becoming, and resilience of the transformation that is happening as well. So that's the thing. So there's plenty of people that have, well, not plenty, but there's a lot of people that have, latent DNA of whatever. Maybe they had a ghoul in their family or whatever, vampire way back in the family or something. Some sort of string of vampirism. I don't fucking know. Whatever you want. I'm not giving too much thought to that just yet. Maybe in episode 5 of this stupid thing, I'll talk about it. By the way, I'll like tell you in the video when we're talking about a new world and stuff like that. But I think we'll be on this one for a while. Anyways, so yeah, I wanted a way to balance this kind of like this weirdness, because otherwise it'd be like, I don't want there to be a lot of people that are hybrids, like this and that. When you become a hybrid, it literally becomes these two things tearing each other apart. And not a lot of people can handle the physical and mental strain of it all, which is why it also leads to the people that do become hybrids also happen to become really fitting in the world, because people that have dealt with like terrible things and like pain and suffering to a certain extent are really good about handling this kind of pain and suffering, because they know that all they have to do is endure it for a while, and then it will settle. And then, of course, there's the other aspect of it, which is understanding, which what I mean by that is, say there's a main character who happens to be obsessed with monsters, and he sees his hands turn bone, he feels his self dwindle, like he doesn't feel as emotionally connected. He kind of puts together something's happening, he's changing. He doesn't immediately jump to ghoul, but he kind of starts thinking in that realm, or not ghoul, sorry, necromancer or whatever. But by the way, he was dressed up as an undead necromancer. Anyways, so he starts putting that together, but then when he sees the moon, and he sees his body react in the way that it does, he immediately understands, because he understands werewolves really well, because it's just a highly documented kind of monster, really socially seen monster. Anyway, so he has a good amount of understanding about it, so when he sees his body react in the way that it does, he understands that. So instead of basically fighting it, our main character goes the other way entirely. He starts inching his way closer to the window and forces himself to look at it. And again, it's supposed to be this ravenous experience, because you have this undead thing that is incredibly powerful because of the thing he dressed up as, which we'll get into, because the context of which you're dressing up as, at least the context in which you understand it as, plays a part in your transformation. Anyways, so basically you have this crazy strong kind of werewolf and this crazy strong kind of necromancer fighting over your DNA. But the main character, because he doesn't hate either. He's not fighting it in the slightest. He's kind of just like, okay, this is happening, how do I weather the storm? And of course the main character has that similar thing where he's went through some negative shit, let's say, in his life, so he knows he just has to endure this. So lo and behold, he doesn't fight it too much, and eventually the two things realize that. It's like, this person doesn't have any issue with either of us, so let's just settle together. And eventually do. So that's what I mean by understanding. Like again, if he would have hid away from the moon, or tried to get away from it, then he would have just been that. But the fact that he accepted that aspect and didn't run from it, and then the what do you call it, the necromancer was already really embedded because he wore literal shit to represent that augmentation. That's the way it works. So, but with that being said, he is like this weird hybrid of being not technically dead, but being seen as an undead or a part of that family, but being alive. Which gets into cool things that we could do playing off other characters like vampire shit and stuff later on. Because he's technically, his blood is tainted by dark shit, because he's an undead necromancer, so it really pushes him down the route of dark magic shit. Like necromancy, I don't think is light magic or something like that, so it pushes him down that road. But he's alive, which is almost impossible. Even vampires that are the closest thing to being an alive undead are not considered alive at all. We're getting into semantics kind of, but both things really hybridize well with each other, because again, he would just be completely bone. And also, that's something in my dumb head when I'm seeing him transform. He had bone hands, his eyes were turning green, and then his skull, this fake skull he put on his face, started to embed itself in his face, because he was becoming undead and all these things. But with the werewolf pulling back, the werewolf starts to break away that mask, so that his face comes through, and then his eyes, instead of green, turn orange, which is why I was saying he was wearing orange contacts. But then I was like, wait, that's not quite right, because the wolf could just easily say, fuck that bitch, I get the face and the eyes, and you get the arms, and yeah, I'll get the legs too. We both get the chest. I don't know, whatever you want. But he's not. That's also the other thing I wanted to go against, is the wolf keeps him from being like having his rib cage be skeleton. So he's basically a human, but with bone hands, and maybe bone feet, just so that he has some. Because those are kind of because he fights boxing wise. Because I really like that idea of fighting, but also he uses the werewolf claws and shit. We're getting really silly at this point. I feel like kind of an asshole talking about this part, but I like it. I won't lie saying I've spent hours thinking about this. Also, I'm sorry if I blow on the mic. It's really close to my face and sounding and all that. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but mug of the sitting, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So, I really want to get to the jump off point here, but I don't know if we'll definitely not have enough time. Damn it. damn it. I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys are with me and hanging out with me. Again, I can't wait to hear what you guys are like. Motherfucker, I'm going to be this and this. And the hybridization is going to be this and this. But I wasn't just quite doing that when I came up with the idea of a necromancer kind of undead with a werewolf. Because to me, there's no different. There's the complete opposites, which is why I think they would power or meld really well together. Because one is literally like the undead and taking advantage of the fact that these creatures are like kind of soulless. But then you have this other thing that is the most alive thing ever. It is like ravenous because it is so alive. And there's a good way to kind of balance them out like that. Okay, also the other thing I want to do is, again, you guys can choose what you want to do when it comes to variants. But for me, my chest. There's a whole spectrum of werewolves. Fucking shit, my chest. So, there is like beta cuck kind of werewolf, which is like, motherfucker, I can turn into a dog, like a slightly bigger wolf. Not even let's say just a bigger dog, like a wolf. You can turn into a wolf. It's okay. It's just kind of okay. And then there's bad bitch kind of like werewolf, which is have you guys ever seen like, what is it, like Teen Wolf? In both ways, like you get claws, and you're basically a good hybridization of using monster power, but being a human, like having human movement and mobility, you know. And then there's bad bitch berserker, which is the like you're literally this hulking fucking werewolf kind of thing. Like you've become a bear / dog. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of thing. Like another movie, which I'm not sure if many people like. I'm again, if it has monsters in it, I'm pretty fucking down. But Van Helsing, when the wolf that Van Helsing turns into at the end of that movie, that literally just dunks on Dracula, is my favorite thing, by the way, because that's like the one movie that was like, okay, werewolves are not strong all the time, but when they turn into a werewolf, nothing can beat them. And I'm like, thank you. At least that's some balance. It's not just a fucking vampire that's at a solid 9 all the time. Anyways. Oh, I can't feel things. Fuck you. Anyway. But yes, that's to me the main character is, of course, the like full-bore person, but also because he is the hybrid of a necromancer and he's very much like in line with the dark part of magic. To me, this is really interesting because I don't want the main character to like. I've never been a fan of like the gross shit of like bursting out of your flesh as this wolf. Like, I don't know. It's just always been like, this seems too much, you know? Again, it's one of those weird balancing things where it's just like, oh, by the way, you can regenerate some health. You can, you're kind of just okay. You know, you age slightly slower, but like every month, you have to go through the most unimaginable pain in the world. And yet other monsters can still shun you. That feels good, right? No, it's not balanced. Stop. Stop. Anyways, so the way that our main character transforms is this black tar starts leaking out of his eyes and his mouth and his ears, and it turns into like this tar that envelops him, and then he finally grows into this thing. So he's basically wearing like a black tar suit of a werewolf. Not quite like Attack on Titan. He's not like a skyscraper, but it's not quite like that. But it's like, it's that vibe. You know, he doesn't burst out of his flesh and he has to regen. It's not like that. It's like, hey, equip werewolf armor, boom, kind of like that. Why? I don't know. It just felt less horrible for our main character. Also, with him being an upbeat, kind person, I would feel like, you know, having your flesh ripped apart every month would be a downer and ruin anybody, really. So yeah. So yes, the main character, he struggles with them fighting over him, and then eventually they kind of settle, because he's appeasing the wolf, but he's also accepting the things that he already has in him. But of course, the necromancer is just kind of just hanging out, where the wolf is like, bitch, this is the first time we've ridden in this rodeo. Let me go. So he goes full bore, transforms, bashes through the window, and starts just flying, just booking it. Now we want to kind of pull back the camera. That's our main character. Let's pause that. He's doing stuff. Yeah, I don't think he murders anybody, because that's something that I had a struggle with too. Is there's a character ID that I really liked, which we'll get into eventually, probably in like a couple parts, next couple podcast things. But I really like the idea of like even if you have something that's like attached to you, like for instance the wolf with the main character, they're kind of different entities. They're born into that world the minute that day happened. That the transformation thing with all people. So they're just as kind of lost about themselves and what they need as anybody else. But we'll get into how we fix this issue, and we don't just have people just kind of this like horrible nightmare for 2 years until everyone, or like 50 years until someone finally gets what's happening and how to handle everything. Anyways, we have another character. Just a random another character, maybe. Probably it's his friend. Anyways, so yes, there's this other dude who's very much similar, an outcast. Cause yeah, but he's an outcast in the sense that he loves tinkering with things. But he also he likes, what do you call it, like old nostalgic things. He's a person who really enjoys the classic, but he's also really good at tinkering things. And he's also morally on a different way. He's not like the main character is quite good and virtuous, and this dude is a little bit more like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that? That kind of vibe. And yeah. So anyways, this main character, he gets roped in to going to this thing, and he's the same age. I think, like, let's say 18 too. Who cares? Yeah, I haven't really gotten into this part with him either. But let's say he's still in school. He's a part of like this club that tinkers with things, makes craft stuff, and they roped him into coming to this special convention, kind of Halloween party, whatever it is. And he reluctantly says yes. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna dress up as, I don't know. Let's go with a demon, whatever. Let's go with that. So he just puts on some horns. One of his classmates gives him these cool new like eye things she had, like these slit eye things. Bang gives him that. And again, we're very much making the character from that TV show I mentioned. But I really like the character, so I kind of want him to stay in line with that, and maybe we'll change some things later down the line. But I really like the idea of wearing those specific glasses because they're just kind of iconic to that kind of ish character, that morally dark but yet kind character. Anyways, so yes, we got to wrap things up. So yes, we got to keep things moving. So he goes to this party. He again, the main character in this kind of plays to like the friendship aspect that we're trying to build as well. They've know people. Like the main character doesn't really know anybody, but this dude he knows people because he's one of his passions is inventing things, crafting just random things. So he has to go get out there specifically. Like he wants to be a part of these clubs so that he can get access to tools so that he can craft stuff cool. But he's not like a party person. Like he's the kind of person that has friends but not really good friends, you know? That kind of vibe. Anyways, they're at the party. We're going to try to push through some things so that we can get back to rules of the world that we're making. But they're at the party. He's got, I don't think he's got devil horns. Let's not do that. Let's just say, again, he's well dressed. He always likes to look nice. So he's wearing this kind of nice coat. Again, I'm very much just building that one character from that show. Just, it's fine. Boom. But he's 18. He's not like a fucking old guy. Anyways, bang. Again, the pop happens. He drops to his knees. Again, feeling his whole body change. He doesn't have horns. That's something that like, well, that's something that I want to play with because I haven't done that much thinking to him in terms of his look and his identity of being a demon. But I do think I want to do the same thing where there are levels to werewolves. There are levels to demons, and for him, it's based on the amount that you can take specifically, like more like to the same. And I think that's why I want the main characters to kind of relate to this on a certain level, is because the more ravenous the thing you're being, like for instance a werewolf, which is very strong, especially when it's like that tier of werewolf. His idea of the demon that he was playing is like this almighty, very strong one, and again that comes into like the world of how you transform to me. Is like whatever prefix you have on your costume, whether you bought it at a mall and you were like, oh, this says vampire, I don't know, thirstless vampire, let's say. Well, you get the prefix of being thirstless, so you don't have as much of a need for blood as anybody else. But if you have the opposite of, say, like blood sucking, then that means you can only gain food from literally sucking the blood out of something, you know, that kind of thing. So there's those prefix matter. But for the special people that are one of those weirdos who like Halloween a lot and come up with their special kind of vibe, their special weirdness, like, hey, I'm going to be a goblin, but also a leprechaun, because which means I have a pot of gold. And then you're like, okay, that's your deal, sure. But for him, he was dressing up as like this demon lord, like this strong person, which is not good, because the stronger the idea of the thing you're becoming can backfire, it can kill you, because it's too much. It's too much for a person who can do this has. And the friend character is very much, he's not just cynical because, I'm not sure if I want to say that his dad beat him or something, and no one loved him or whatever, and that's why he has a jaded perception of the world. Or not even a jaded perception, but he's familiar with the brutal reality of the world more than the main character is, per se. We'll say that, because I do want that guy, or like the friend, to be very much that kind of thing. Like in a storm, he knows why it's storming and how to push through the storm, whereas our main character would try to get the storm to stop altogether, which is good, but not always can be accomplished, So I want this kind of, through the story we're going to tell, that to be applied, boom, 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 kind of understanding of like, in both taking, instead of like rejecting and hating the person for making those choices, instead they're impressed and happy that they made those choices because it's something that they couldn't really do, or at least something they couldn't do at that moment. So stuff like that. That's the story I want to tell. I don't want to tell a story where they're constantly at odds. I want these people to very much meld into like this family, these brothers that can't be taken away. Anyways, so yes, high level demon. He's on the floor seizing whatever you want, or maybe he's just in incredible pain and his eyes are starting to literally change. So he's trying to get the contacts out of his eyes because he sees some punch fall from the party when everything goes crazy. The punch falls on the floor and he sees his reflection and his eyes start glowing and he starts freaking out trying to pull them out and he can't get them out. So he starts freaking out. And then him, unlike our main character who was very much, he never left his room. He was about to leave and then boom, that happened to him. This guy is more like, fuck, and he starts seeing like this woman transform who has horns. Oh right, I didn't even mention that. But to me, for demons real quick, I wanted it to be the same with the werewolves. So if you're a demon, like a low level demon, you got fucking really long nonsense horns, like they're kind of just crazy, like they're going everywhere. But the higher tier you go, the less gross you look, because you want to blend in to things. Or yeah, never mind, I like that better. Let's say a demon can be, especially a demon lord, let's say a demon lord can be recognized by a single trait. Yeah, I like that a lot more. Okay. Yeah, so if you're a demon, you can only be recognized by a single trait. So you either have horns, you can be recognized by that. You can either have a tail, sure, let's go with that. Or you can have demonic eyes, or you can be recognized by those three things. But the lower the demon, the more of these recognizable things you have. So this main guy, the main thing that he has is his eyes. And everything else that comes with being a demon, which is a lot more passive. That's the vibe that I want to tell. And the reason why is because I guess this is a good time as any. Anyways, well, let's wrap up that. So again, he's freaking out. He's like trying to exit the party as he sees like these people transform into this weird thing, like this dude who is becoming Jason. Let's just go with that because we already mentioned it. Him starting to like his tiny scrawny kid just fucking grow a giant arm and him like freak out like ah, and then his back bulk up too, and the dude's like getting out of there like fuck. And as he's trying to weather the pain, because again, the demon to me I want to represent more of like a brutal kind of survival. So again, he's pushing through everybody trying to get everyone out of his way, and he's speaking candidly like fucking get the fuck out of my way, pushing people over as they're fucking morphing, and he's like shit, I gotta get out of here. Anyways, he gets out of there finally. He makes it 2 steps, and then he just fucking crashes hard into the ground, boom. And then at this point, both of the main characters that are gonna meet up eventually are out cold, bang. Well, not really. One is out cold, one is fucking about with his werewolf just going ham. I think that's a good place to stop. But I want to leave some things for you guys just so you guys know where we're gonna go in a couple minutes. So one of the things is the demon, the other main character. He is very much he can't find anyone basically because they exude that. They exude distrust and they exude corruption. Let's say. which is not exactly nice, but it's just what's happening. So that guy, his next rodeo is going to be bad because he's going to basically group up with people and then prove to stab him in the back and throw him away. Or as soon as they find out that what he is, they throw him away because yuck, demon, whatever. But the main character is going to, of course, not be that way. But because he has a fucking issue too, where he's basically a wolf, this giant fucking berserker man. But his wolf didn't kill anybody. But yes, okay. And because I want you guys to know where we're going, just so maybe you guys are like, I like it, I don't like it. We're gonna start building our characters to basically survive Hell Knight. Sure, let's call it Hell Knight for right now until maybe you guys throw me a better name. Basically, just to give you guys a tease for the next part, they're gonna to run by things. They're gonna meet up, and then they're gonna. Well, our main character has done something. I don't know how to say this. Probably we're trying to wrap this up. Our main character has found a relic. Yes, motherfucker, we're doing it this way. And that explains some aspects about him. Cool. Now, he meets up with his other guy, the other person, the person we just talked about, his demon friend. And then he's like, okay, well, not only am I with you, but I'll help you find this relic, because this relic helped me settle things to a degree. And just tell me where you want to go. Tell me where you feel like we should go. And then they go there. And that's kind of the vibe of them doing Hell Knight. So where everyone else is freaking out, they don't know what's happening, they're turning into these horrible creatures. Our main characters adapt really quickly. They accept what they are. Because the others accept them. Because each other, like, I don't care, you're a demon, I don't care, you're a werewolf. Fucking cool, let's go. That's what they do. Anyways, so then they go forth. And that's the whole vibe of them doing Hell Knight, is them going to each of these relic places, and each of these relics have a really powerful thing that they give them. So for instance, one of them is like as a necklace for the main character that gives him a really good understanding of his wolf. Basically, we're building this to kind of be an MMO. So when you get a relic, there's many relics, but when you get your first relic, it is literally like a build. Like, it tells you, okay, this is what you are, this is how you do what you do, this is what your beast needs, and it basically is an entire skill tree that just summarizes it and helps you guide you through these things. And very, very few people found these in Hell Knight, and this was a gift by the deity to basically be like, okay, those who accept who they are and embrace who they are, as soon as they possibly get this, and realizing that they're not different, they're not who they are anymore. They now have an access to a bunch of different skills and a bunch of different problems they have to deal with. Now they have to balance everything, and then the third part opens it up even more, because that's where that to me is like, if you guys want to, we're not done setting up the world yet. I think maybe probably second part. At the tail end of the second part, or maybe the first start of the third part of this podcast, we'll talk about the world, and opening that up to all of you guys, to like where the world is, like that's the benchmark of, okay, now you're ready to do whatever you want, because we set up a lot of conditions, we built up to this point, and now you guys can go nuts. But that's essentially the premise for the upcoming part. Is for us to cover them meeting. Well, first him finding his totem, them meeting, them just going fucking ham. Okay, God, should I wait? I think I should wait. Oh, I want to talk about it so much. We'll wait. Okay. Yeah, fuck. Maybe we'll make another part right right now. God, I was getting kind of tired of talking, but maybe now that I'm getting really antsy about wanting to talk about part 2. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I'll talk about it in part 2. I really want to talk about the demon guy's position in the group, because there are going to be more characters coming along, and that to me is also why I want you guys to watch part 2 or 3 at least when I tell you guys it's the stopping point, because one of my favorite things is introducing interesting character ideas, because for me that's always a fun thing. It's like, oh, I don't know, for instance, a person who has living armor, like a knight that has living armor, and then coming up with backstory for that, and then coming up with ways that can be built. And honestly, I really like builds, so that's easy for me to come up with, like, okay, well, how could that be strong? Okay, she could have this, that. So that's character ideas that we'll get into in the future, but part 3 is kind of when we're going to start playing with those kinds of ideas. It's going to take a while. But there's still a lot of built-up work to put our main characters in a place to where they can just feast on the world. What I mean by feast on the world, it means just capitalize on things when other people aren't. And yeah, it's very much, I guess, if I were to take like a step back from the story, it very much is like this event, and then me moving more towards like kind of an MMO, like an isekai, I guess, kind of anime premise of like, okay, well, here's all these tools that you can play with, and here's how our characters are going to acquire those tools to buff themselves up, and make them like way stronger than everyone around them because of the way they handled being different, and accepting being different. And yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, I may make a part right now, just off the cuff, just firing away. Because yeah, I really enjoyed this. And again, this is something that I've always done ever since I was like a kid. I'm talking like 8, even maybe 6 or 7, where I'm just sitting there in my mind, just making up shit and having a good old time, coming up with balancing statistics and shit. So hopefully you guys enjoy. I'm not sure if anyone gets something out of this, but this is a series that I think I will definitely continue, because it's just interesting trying to put things into words, because in your mind you're like, you can see the scene, you can see the characters. Like, that's something I think I'll have trouble with, is conveying the dialogue between them, which I know back to front, like I know how they would interact with each other, but having to say that on the spot is kind of challenging. So yeah. But again, this is basically a series that I just wanted to make because I wanted to extend the olive branch to the world that I'm piecing together. And again, it's not fully made yet. Again, you can make any changes you want to it, any rule you want to change. Maybe you want to live in a horror world, or maybe you want a short story where this happens, but you're the big bad, or maybe you're not the big bad, but you look like the big bad monster, but you're actually really good and you're protecting people from the big bad. You can do all things, you know. That's the fun thing about this show, is that you can literally go and take it anywhere you want. But again, if you guys want to repay me in any way, please let me know what you guys came out with. What direction you wanted, what hybrid you want to make, or what just base thing you want to make. Maybe you want to just do a werewolf, but you say, fuck that, dude. Werewolves are strong as shit in this world, and how dare you make them seem like such horribly balanced creatures for such a long time. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to make more of these. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This was a blast and a half. Thank you again, and goodbye.